Good morning to everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Boundary Systems Wednesday webinar. My name is Michael Wimberly, and we will be going over the in-service management. Now, I do notice that if you were on the webinar from last week, this is the same title. Last week, we actually covered the service parts information, which was basically the viewer. Now we're actually going into Windchill and talking about how to set it up, which is the actual service information management. So I actually ended up switching the two topics. But this week is the actual service information management, which is dealing with the Windchill side of the service. So how do we get what we actually see in the service parts viewer? So with this one, once again, they'll go through a general introduction of who Boundary Systems is, topic overview, and of course, a demonstration of the service information management, and then a Q&A after that. My name is Michael Wimberly. I am a technical specialist here at Boundary Systems. I have over 25 years of experience with PTC products, as well as over 20 years of experience of training in PTC products. I am, of course, a certified trainer, as well as a certified Windchill implementation specialist. And Boundary Systems as a whole, we do consider ourselves a technology leader. Some of our technology partners, of course, will be PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, Autodesk, and other companies. We'll show you a list of some of those companies in just a few moments. We've been the 16th fastest growing private company in the greater Cleveland area, as well as we are part of the PDS Vision Group. That is beneficial to all of us because that also gives us a greater global footprint. So now we have other resources other than the original resources that we had globally that we can go through and work. So if you do have sites in different parts of the world, we should have some type of resource, at least in that general area, that can assist with that. Some of our general capabilities, are product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and product development. What you see on the left side are just a few of the customers that we work with. This is not the entire list, it's just a few of them that you may recognize. But if you're not up there, we can put you up there, and of course you can become a customer for us as well. All right, now, what stands us apart? One of the things that stands us apart is our mission statement, what we stand behind at Boundary Systems. One of them is to have the most technical expertise on PTC products of any company in the world. We have a lot of people that know a lot of different things. We don't consider ourselves to know, as far as individually, know everything, but we have a lot of people who are subject matter experts in a lot of different areas associated with either the industry itself, as well as the software associated with the industry. So we do consider ourselves to have quite a bit of technical expertise in a lot of the PTC products. The other thing that sets us apart is the first thing we want to go in and figure out is understand what you as a customer need. So we're not going to offer you anything until we understand what it is that you're trying to do. So we want to go through and analyze your processes, where you are now, where you want to get to, and figure out how to get there, which is now the next piece of it, which is why we guarantee the success of every solution, is because once again, we don't offer stuff just to go in and give you software that helps us meet a quota. We want to go in and give you software that helps you meet your quotas, allow you to go through and get your data out faster and more efficiently, which is once again the last object, which is decreasing your cost overall, decreasing your time to market, and increasing the quality of your products. So that is our mission, is basically it's focused on the customer. It's not just focused on what we can get out of it, but how we can help you get the best out of what you have, software-wise, or offer additional software to get you to where you need to be. Here we have a few of the softwares that we do offer. Of course, the PTC suite we go through and offer. We also have Tecton, Modex 3D, Xformation, eTraj, ITI that helps us write any applications that we may need to have two pieces of software talk to each other that may normally not talk to each other. We have ZWCAD, which is an alternative to AutoCAD, much cheaper, but the same functionality as AutoCAD, KeyShot, SigMaxim, and of course Cimerix. We also have partnerships with each one of those as well. So if you have any questions on, once again, what we offer, any of the softwares that you've seen, or just general technical questions, you can definitely reach out to me at mwimberly@boundarysys.com. If you have any sales-related questions, you can direct those to sales@boundarysys.com. If you do want to reach out to me, I will get that sent to the appropriate person as well. And for any additional information about us, definitely reach out to us or search us on the web. Find us on the web at boundarysys.com. Also, our Wednesday webinars and other technical videos that we create are on our YouTube channel. So if you go into YouTube and you search for Boundary Systems, you will find our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. That way you will be alerted anytime we go through and upload any new videos. All of our Wednesday webinars will be on there, including this one. So definitely go in and research it. So if you do want to go back over some information, you can do that through the YouTube channel. All right, so the first thing is just simply a review of the service information management. With this, is just simply going in, and now, as I mentioned before, if you've seen the in-service piece of it, where we have the viewer, where we're looking at the actual data. So for the service person may go in and they can search for a product, they can search for a serial number, all that information, they can go through and view it from there. What we're now looking at is the beginning of that. How do we actually get our data from Windchill to that specific structure? So that's what we're looking at in the service information management. So this time I will go ahead into a demonstration. And one of the first things I do want to show you, let's see, it should come up. Ooh, does not like me right now. What? Okay, well, does not allow me to get to my in-service. I apologize for that. Don't know why not. But I will jump right into the actual demonstration. What I was just going to simply show you was the actual structure. I'll see if I can pull it up on something else to kind of give you an overview of what it looks like. For those that aren't necessarily familiar with it, or just kind of correlate the actual structures. So the first thing that we want to look at is our actual data. So I have a lot of this kind of pre-configured, so I'm just going to kind of step you through some of the information. Of course, when we're going into Creo, we still go through and recreate everything just like we normally would. We have all our CAD files that we go through and we define, we check all that data into Windchill. We also, as we're going in and checking that data into Windchill, we also have the parts created. So in this structure, or in this layout here, we actually have two separate folders for our CAD files and for our WT part files. And here's our WT part file information. So what we end up doing is we now take this structure, which is currently a design structure, because once again, it's based on our design data, and we can now go through and take this design data and actually go through and create an actual service BOM for it. How complex is this one? Not very, but it may work. So what I can do, and I do apologize speed-wise, this is not the fastest machine. But what I can do is I'm going to take this stop block assembly here, and currently, as I mentioned before, this is currently set up using a design BOM, but we want to go through and make it now a service BOM. Now, the benefit of converting this to a service BOM is that now when we create that structure, it doesn't have to maintain this same structure that we created inside of Creo. because service may look at things a little differently. They may group things a little bit differently than we do inside of Creo. So what I can do is now take this assembly or this structure, and I'm going to now open it in. It's now a service product structure explorer. So now that we're dealing with the service side of it, I'm pulling it up into that specific explorer that will allow me to go through and update or create the structure as necessary. Give me just a few moments. And this will look very similar. If you've been in the product structure, in the regular product structure explorer, this will look very similar to this. This one is more of the service product structure explorer. So here's our current structure based on, once again, what we've just seen. This is all at the design stage. Now, what I'm going to do is take what we're currently looking at, and I'm going to go ahead and make this the upstream view, which is basically the main view. So I'm going to go in and make that the upstream view, which is now going to go in and give me a secondary view, or what we will call the downstream view on the left side. Currently, this is looking for a manufacturing BOM. I'm actually going to go ahead and change that filter. So instead of it going in and looking for a manufacturing BOM, I'm going to go ahead and change this to now looking at a service. I haven't created a service BOM yet, but it will populate in that area. So that way it automatically goes, oh, sorry, didn't add it over. So there's currently nothing for it to look for. So now I'm going to take this BOM that I currently have, sorry, that BOM, and I'm going to go ahead and now make this the new, or create a new downstream view of it. So what I'm going to do is propagate all the information. And once again, I want my downstream view to be a service BOM. So it's going to go in and now take this current structure and now make it, instead of being a design BOM, it's going to go ahead and make it into my service BOM. And there we have it. So now it takes those files that we had, and now I'm into my service BOM. As I mentioned before, at this point, I can now go in and take this data and now begin to reorganize it based on how service will go through and use it. So maybe I'm going to go in and take this part and this part here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, where'd it go? Oh, yes, sorry. I do need to go ahead and take this, check it out, because I'm going to make changes to it. Now I'm going to go in and take these two files, and I'm going to assemble them underneath a new part. So I'm basically going to take my hardware, and I'm now going to go through and restructure it. So now all my hardware is underneath the same area. So I do want to make sure that this is still in my demo area. I'm actually going to go in and make sure it's underneath. That's fine. Context. No, it's not going to be an end item. No, it's not going to be configurable. And then once again, I'm just going to call this hardware. Sorry. And then the view, once not going to be a design view, it's still going to be a service view that I'm going to go through and use. And there's the location of it. Right now it's under demo. I'm going to go in and make sure it goes underneath my parts folder. There's that. And then any additional comments I want to make for part numbers, spares code, part comments, whatever it is I want to go through and add. So if there were some additional attributes that we want to fill out for this part, we can go through and specify that as well. So maybe there are some special attributes that we have associated with our service parts, and we can now have those listed there, and we can go through and now fill in that information as necessary. Once I go in and complete that, it's now going to take those two pieces of hardware And now I thought I got rid of the G. And now those are listed underneath that hardware part. So now, as I said, I can now go through and restructure this so that it actually goes through and now fits to how service is going to go through and work on these particular files. So there's that. Great. So now when I go to my parts, I can now see the service items that I've just created. So those are there. Oh, I did not check this in. So let's go ahead and check that file in. So I'll maintain the updates that I put in there. All right, so that now gives me my service BOM that I can now go through and add and manipulate however I want to. Now, the next part of that is now going in and creating my actual parts list, which is basically like a catalog. So if I come over here, once again, everything's broken down into actual folders here. It can all be in one folder if you chose to, but what I'm able to do here is now go through and specify the actual parts that we're going to go through and use. As I said, it's like a parts catalog. So I can come down here. You can see there's multiple icons. There's the documents. This is actually the viewable that we can go through and look at. So when we are looking in the in-service area, that's the viewable that we'll see. There's the actual parts list itself. So if I come over here and select on this V8, when I go to the structure, underneath the V8 structure, I can then see the components underneath it. So here's my V8, and then underneath there are all the items that make up that V8. What we also see in here is this viewable. Now, this is the viewable that we will see when we're actually looking at it inside of the in-service area. So when we're looking at the BOM and we're looking at all the balloons and everything, this is the view that we're going to see, how everything is called out here. So that's where that comes from. Now, how it's created is also created inside of Creo Illustrate. So that is a viewable, but we're able to go in and use is underneath representation. There's the actual representation that we can go through and basically bring into Creo Illustrate and actually use that for the manipulating of the design or the view, I should say, sorry, of the view. So what we're looking at is whenever we create that product structure or the parts list, sorry, it will actually go through and give us the actual listing of files. That viewable will be based on the items that are in this actual structure. And then from here, we would now take this viewable, which is a dynamic document, and we would import this into our actual Creo Illustrate. And inside of Creo Illustrate is now where we go through and create and we manipulate, we explode it, we go through and add the balloons, move the balloons around, clean it up. So when we are in the in-service area, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what we've created inside of the Creo Illustrate area. So that's where the parts list comes from. The parts list, when we go through and look at that, to create that parts list, we can go through and associate it directly with an existing BOM. So we already have this V8 base, and what we can do is simply take it and now take the files that are here and simply populate them over there. So anytime we want to go through and create our actual parts listing, we don't have to go in and create each one of these parts. All we're simply saying is from this V8 base assembly, these are the files that we want to go through and copy. Now, it may be all of them. It may be just some of them. So we go through and we select the files that we want. All we're simply doing is taking those files and we're dragging and dropping them. So we will go through and drag and drop them into that BOM structure, onto this parts list, and now it becomes a part of the parts list. So that item I just dragged was this one here. So now this becomes part of this listing. So I would just simply select all the ones I want to, drag them over there. And once again, once this item is checked in, it will then go in and create a viewable that has all that, the views in there, all the images in there that we can go through and use. And once again, save it out to be able to open it up inside of Creo Illustrate, sorry. Just so you can actually see, I will open up Creo Illustrate as well. I think I already have it open. Yep. So this is an example of Creo Illustrate. It looks very similar to Creo View, but of course it has a lot more function inside of it that we can go through. And as I said, move the balloons around, pull parts apart, add notes to it, all those different things, add additional figures to them, change the display of the different views. So like I said, it has some of the same functionality that you would see inside of Creo View, but it has a few more functions based on the annotations that we have inside of here. So when I select on an item, it gives me the ability to go through and manipulate that specific annotation. So it's just like going in and adding notes to a viewable inside of Creo View. So we will go through and once again save this out. And then once that is saved out, blank screen. Sorry, didn't realize there was so many blank screens behind there. All right. Jeez. All right, so that's now that viewable that we will go through and use for this particular object. So once again, the initial step is taking our initial BOM structure and then taking that and creating a service BOM. From that service BOM, we can now go through and restructure it the way that we want to for service purposes, and then we will come over and create our parts list. To create our parts list, we now go into our structure, and then we will come over here and actually open up the BOM. So there's the option here to go through and add a BOM. Let's check this out. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so I can come over here and manipulate this as well. So there's the add BOM that is available. So if I want to add something from a different BOM, I can go through to add BOM. Let me remove this BOM. Sorry. All right. So I can go in and add information from this BOM, add information to this BOM, and that illustration that I created here. If I did update it, there's my option to go through and now add the illustration. So if I wanted to replace the one that is there with a newer one or a different one, I can go through and now add that illustration. And now once again, that becomes the viewable that we see when we're inside of InService. Let me see if I pull up. I have a video. I just want to kind of show you. I can get the views up that shows the InService. All right, I'll pull up InService in just a moment in a different browser. What we're looking at, once again, we now have our parts list. From our parts list, we can now go through and create our information structure. So I'm going to come back here to our demo area. Now, so we have our BOM that we've created from our assembly, our initial assembly. So we have our service BOM. From our service BOM, we now created our catalog of parts. Our catalog of parts are simply going in and saying, okay, here's this top level item and here's everything underneath it. So for this engine, here's that listing. For if we're talking cars, it could be something as simple as seats. Here's the seats and here are all the actual components that are associated with the seats. So each one of those parts lists basically gives you, for lack of a better way to say it, a BOM for each one of those elements. So you have a V8, you have a V6, you have a 4-cylinder. You could also, once for seats, you can have leather seats, you can have cloth seats, you can have heated seats for either one of those options. And what that does is it now gives us that BOM structure that we need for each one of those. Now from here, we can also go in and create our informational elements. The informational elements allows us to also go through and define structures underneath them as well. So when I go in and look at this information element for basically my parts list holder, illustration holder, there's the informational group itself. Carriage slide, what am I looking at it for this one? So underneath this one, for this structure, we now see, okay, we're now looking at this specific car. Now we're going to break this car down into its categories. So from here, what area do I need to look into? Do I want to look in the system area? Do I want to look in the cylinder area? Do I want to look in the carriage block? You know, if we're looking at a car, it can be something like the engine. Okay, then underneath the engine, which one are we looking at? So remember, we created those parts lists. So now this is where we now take those parts lists and we categorize them. So those are V8s, the different versions of the V8. We can also, of course, have our V6s, our 4-cylinders, all those things underneath there. So now our informational structure now allows us to take the parts list that we've defined and now put them into different categories. So now when we're looking at the in-service, this is now one of the categories. So we're looking at, okay, we're looking at automobiles, or we're looking at autos general. Now we can go through and say, okay, from there, what manufacturer do I want to look at? Do I want to look at Ford, Honda, Toyota, Lexus, Porsche, BMW, whatever? I can go through and specify that. Then from there, I can specify the actual model type. I want to go through and look at, you know, for a Honda, I want to look at the Accord. Okay, now under the Accord, what area do I want to look at? Now I can break it down a little bit further. Here, it's okay, I'm in the Accord. What elements of the Accord do I need to go through and look at? Do I need to look at the seat because that's what I need to work on? Do I need to look at the engine because that's what I'm working on? Do I need to look at the electronics because that's what I'm working on? So each one of these now can break down into those different elements. So as a service tech or an assembler, as I go through and specify, okay, here's this, you know, top level, the next level being, okay, Honda, the next level being Accord, the next level being the seat. Great, okay, now that I'm at the seat level, here's a BOM for a cloth seat. Here's a BOM for a leather seat. Here's a BOM for a leather heated seat. You know, so those are the 3 elements that I can go through and define inside of here, and now actually have my actual listing of the item. So this is my parts list itself. I can now go in and view this parts list and see once again the individual elements associated with that. So that takes me back to here, and that takes me back to my actual parts list of everything of that particular element. So when we're looking at, once again, the informational structure now points to the parts list that we've defined. And once again, the parts list that we define are based on our service BOM that we've created. so that now when the service techs are looking at this information, it's based on how they understand putting things together. It could be kit based, it could be once again optional based, it can be manufacturing based, it can be location, whatever it is that you want to go through and categorize things as, then we can go through and now break down each one of those pieces so that we have the appropriate structures. Now, the last element of that now takes us to the next level up. And from inside of there, we now want to look at the actual product hierarchy. So with the product hierarchy itself, now we can go through and break it down from the top level all the way down. So remember I mentioned just a moment ago, our top level being autos. Okay, underneath autos, the next level down would be the manufacturer. Who is the auto through? What's going on? What just happened? Okay, I'm not sure why everything just closed down on me, unless I did that myself. All right, so let's go back to where we were. Folders. And then once again, underneath product hierarchy, as I was just mentioning, this is now where we can go through and break down all the elements. So I'm going to come up here to root. And then I'm going to go into my structure underneath root. So now this is now that whole top level. So what we've done is kind of worked our way from the bottom up. So we went down to the furthest, to the deepest detail being the individual parts. From the parts, we then went in and defined it. I'm sorry, the parts being the service BOM. Then from the service BOM, we now associated those BOM structures to an actual parts list. And then from the parts list, we now go through and now associate that information to our informational structure. And now we're looking at the level above that, which is now the actual overall hierarchy. So this is now our root. And now here's product 1 and product 2. And once again, this can be autos. And underneath autos, there's Ford, there's Honda, then there's GM, then there's Toyota, Porsche, whatever it may be that we're going in and looking at. So as I expand, we can see that now the different elements underneath product 1, we have type 1, 2, and 3. Underneath, for ours, if this is Honda, we can go through and say, okay, underneath Honda, we have SUVs, sedans, and minivans. And then underneath each one of those, now it does break it down into different variants underneath here. So now we can go through for each one of those. For sedans, we have Accord, Civic, what is another one? Insight. We have those that are also available. And then from there, we can now go into our informational structure. So at this point, now that we're in that individual automobile, we can now go through and specify. So now in the Accord, I want to look at this element. I want to look at the engine type. I want to look at the seats. I want to look at the electrics. I want to look at the axles, whatever it may be. I can go through and specify those specific areas that I want to go through and now look into. Or if I want to go another level deeper or create another level, I can as well. So now I'm looking at the Accord, but I'm not ready to break it down yet because I have LX, EX, I have Sport, I have 2-door, 4-door, I have all those different elements that I can still go down and break this down into. I apologize. I'm not sure what is going on. I lost my connection. Okay. Once again, I apologize. I'm not sure what just happened to my session. But it seemed to have kicked me out. Okay. All right. So of course, everything is just falling apart at this moment. Now I'm opening up project. No, project. Microsoft project. There, it's over there. All right. So let me see if I can connect to a different one to actually show you InService real quick for those that are not familiar with it, or I should say, just to see the connection there. Once again, I do apologize. I'm not sure what just happened to my session, but it obviously wanted me to get out. So give me just a few moments to see if I can reconnect, or at least connect to a different one. Everything's taking a little bit longer at this point. But like I said, just give me just a few moments and I should be back up. All right. So now I'm back up. This is a different assembly, but that is fine. Let's see if I can open up the viewer. Just to show you. So now this is InService itself. So everything that I just referred to is now here. So when we looked at product 1 and product 2, here they are. So I can come over here to product 1. There's the 3 different types that we've gone through and defined. So type 1, type 2, and type 3. Now I can go through and expand type 1. Underneath type 1, there's a variant that I was referring to. So we have the 3 variants that we can go into. And then underneath there's our system, our cylinder, our carriage block. So those are our parts lists. I can go in here and say, okay, I want to go into system. Now, which one of those items I want to look at? Do I want to look at this V8, or that V8? I can now go through and select on these. And now this will give me the viewable as well as the actual structure itself. In just a moment. There we go. So this now shows the overall structure. So all the elements or all the components individually. Over here, you can see the viewable is now coming up. There's quite a bit of information inside of there. That's why there's so many balloons. But as we go through and we zoom in, we can now go through and kind of start making things out as far as what they are, what they're pointing to. We can always go back into Creo Illustrate and update this, kind of spread them out a little bit more, maybe create multiple sheets to go through and show different information. So instead of trying to show everything on the first sheet, we can go through and now break it down into multiple sheets to go through and see the items as well. But everything over there is also listed over here. So this is now, once again, when we look at that overall structure that we've created, this is where all of that now breaks down. So that hierarchy that I just referred to, that's where we go in and start at that top level. And we go into the products themselves, the demo product, and then underneath there, each one of the different options that we want to go through and specify. So once again, we can go as deep down as we want to before we start showing our parts list. So we can have as many categories as deep as we want, and then break down the parts list. Or you can start parts list up higher if you want to, where you have more sub-assemblies over here, and then break down into each one of those sub-assemblies. So as I can come over here and view this sub-assembly itself as well. So I can go through and see its information in here as well. So, all right. So at this point, I will consider this demonstration complete. Are there any questions associated with that? Once again, I do apologize for some of the hiccups inside of the demonstration. But at this point, if you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the questions area in the webinar dialog box. All right. There does not seem to be any questions. So once again, thank you all for attending the webinar. If you do have any questions that come up after you've logged off, feel free to contact me. Once again, mwimberly@boundarysys.com, or sales-related questions, sales@boundarysys.com. Always visit our website as well as our YouTube channel to get more information about us or any webinars that we've actually gone in and done in the past. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful rest of the day.